is Give a Tribute. The project is Give a Tribute from the Leadership Dynamics Path and Pathways. It's 9 to 11 minutes. Howard Hinman is the senior paralegal and co-trustee at Charles Arthur Enterprises Trust. Website www.passingbucks.com. He's also associated with Stavati Aerospace, www.stavati.com. Title of his speech is What Was the Last Major World Event to Be Reported via Runner? Please welcome Howard.
From sea level to summit, Mount Everest is the tallest mountain on this planet. Those are the Dolomite Alps in Italy, I've been told. From base to top, dormant Hawaiian volcano Mauna Kea on the Big Island is taller. Extinct volcano Olympus Mons has manifested taller at over 22,000 meters, 22 kilometers, nearly 3 times the height of Mount Everest, the tallest known mountain in our solar system. Returning to Everest, after the takeover of the easier northern climbing route via Tibet by the mainland Chinese, a brutal occupation that continues to this day, in the early 1950s, mountaineers from various countries attempted to summit Mount Everest for the first known time via the southern route through Nepal. Nepal did not allow summit attempts until 1950. The very first attempt was a 1951 exploratory attempt by a British-New Zealand team. It featured a beekeeper born in Auckland, New Zealand. He'll be one of our stars later in this talk. The first attempt by a Swiss team in 1952 resulted in a record altitude of 8,895 meters. The Swiss team ended up about 250 meters from the summit, well into the death zone. The final couple included Swiss mountaineer Raymond Lambert, plus Sherpa and eventual summiter Tenzing Norgay. They heroically crawled to that altitude despite malfunctioning oxygen equipment. They gladly shared their expertise with the subsequent expeditions. The 1952 Swiss expedition succeeded beyond all expectations and paved the way for future glory. They almost certainly would have attained the summit with better equipment and preparation. Since Nepal is by a 1923 treaty effectively a protectorate of Great Britain, not India, although it has a treaty of friendship with the latter, the British Empire was given the second shot around Memorial Day 1953. The French were allotted the 1954 slot, the Swiss the 1955 slot. The French passed for 1954, and the Swiss put 4 mountaineers on the summit in 1956, not 1955. A Chinese team allegedly summited from Tibet in 1960. Whether they did or not deserves its own separate talk. The United States put 6 on the summit in 1963. Since the early 1950s, summiting has also been attempted around Labor Day, immediately after the monsoon ends. In other words, the weather typically allows summit attempts right around the United States Memorial Day and then Labor Day. Presiding officer, ladies and gentlemen, summiting Everest is extremely dangerous. When the weather changes for the worse, possibly fatal. The rate of death and serious injury, such as losing an ear, your nose, fingers, toes, part of an arm, etc., appears to be right at 10%. The death rate is 1%. The rate of death and serious injury has dropped over time. I spoke decades ago in tribute to the 1998 documentary film based on the book Into Thin Air, which chronicles the disastrous 1996 climbing season. 1/7 of the summiters died that season. Plus half the Nepalese border police high altitude rescue team, 2 out of 4. Some climbing seasons, fully 1/4 of the Mount Everest summiters die. I want that to sink in. Even though it is improving, the horrendous casualty rate in the death zone of the Himalayas and Karakoram ranges. The 1996 climbing season featured the highest altitude record rescue of a stricken climber, Texas pathologist Beck Weathers, by a helicopter in recorded history. Although there have since been higher helicopter rescues, that true tale deserves its own talk, along with the 1996 Everest climbing season revisited, and how improved micro-weather forecasting has made a difference in safety. Plus, whether inexperienced death zone climbers have any business whatsoever climbing Mount Everest or any mountain reaching death zone altitude in the Himalayas or Karakoram ranges. The term was coined by Swiss mountaineer and physician Edward Wyss-Dunant, the leader of our esteemed 1952 Swiss expedition in 1953. It refers to mountains that reach higher than 8,000 meters. It is customary to build a stone cairn to the dead. You do not want a cairn built for you on Mount Everest. Stone memorial cairns in Bhutan, Nepal, and Tibet are called chortens. On a most positive note, after proper supplies and supreme preparation, topped off with heroic endeavors, on May 29, 1953, at 11:30 local time, our New Zealand beekeeper, Sir Edmund Hillary, was first to the summit. Sherpa Tenzing Norgay, whose son Jabling Tenzing Norgay is featured in the 1998 Everest documentary, was a second. There was no word for days. Of the Sherpas, as a famed mountaineer since 1935, only Norgay was afforded the dignity of a bed. These days, a positive change is Sherpas are treated far better than in 1953. Memorial cairns are built for them as well. They are afforded the dignity of a chorten. The 1953 British expedition had one reporter, Jan Morris, from The Times. Jan Morris started out as a gentleman, fashioned into a lady in 1972, and she passed away in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, presiding officer, Jan Morris sent a coded message via runner from the base camp to Namche Bazaar and radioed to the Nepal capital of Kathmandu, then via telegram to London. The Times broke the story in London the morning of June the 2nd, 1953, the coronation day of Queen Elizabeth II. It was a lead story in the Times, trumping even the coronation. It featured a gigantic picture of Tenzing Norgay in his climbing gear. And here is, from July 1953, Sir Edmund Hillary in London holding the picture he took of Tenzing Norgay on Mount Everest, and he has manifested, quite frankly, a Cheshire cat grin. I'll leave that up there because it's very inspiring to me. The successful ascent of Mount Everest was called a coronation gift to her. Edmund Hillary and expedition leader British Army Colonel John Hunt, who organized the expedition with Swiss precision, based on advice graciously provided by the 1952 Swiss climbing team, were knighted via return telegram, plus presented with a kukri, a short sword with a jeweled sheath. Tenzing Norgay was given the George Medal. Hillary, Hunt, and Norgay were given individual Hubbard medals from the National Geographic Society. The expedition received the first group Hubbard medal. The Queen of Nepal presented Sir Edmund Hillary with 10,000 rupees, about 500 pounds sterling. Further honors followed. John Hunt was made a baron. The government of India honored Edmund Hillary and Jamling Tenzing Norgay, since his father was no longer with us, for the 50th anniversary of the climb with a banner personally presented by the Indian Prime Minister. Honors richly earned and deserved. I will state that even more strongly. Top of the world results from a single coded message carried by a runner and then to all corners of the world, resulting in everlasting glory for both Tenzing Norgay and New Zealand beekeeper Sir Edmund Hillary, who later became a great Antarctic explorer. Those achievements deserve their own separate talk. Back to you, presiding officer.
Thank you, Howard. Please take a moment or two to send Howard any thoughts you might have about his speech. Comments or suggestions?